Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to another episode of the Art of Badassery podcast, where we explore the remarkable stories and journeys of truly outstanding individuals who have fearlessly pursued their passions and carved their paths in lives. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and today I have a very special guest. Not only does she epitomize the spirit of adventure and determination, but she's also my client. Ro Stoltzfoos hails from a small bedroom community outside Flint, Michigan. As a young dreamer, Ro's aspirations were anchored in news reporting and journalism, driven by the remarkable Connie Chung. Her journey, however, took her far from those Michigan roots, leading her to her current home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After embarking on a well-deserved 7-month break from the corporate world, Ro is poised to dive back in, ready to conquer new challenges and new opportunities. But that's actually just the beginning of Ro's story. When she's not busy making her mark in the corporate realm, Ro is a master of adventure planning. Whether orchestrating the perfect family vacation or setting sail on a memorable cruise, she knows how to infuse life with excitement and joy. And speaking of family, she cherishes every moment spent with her loving husband and adorable daughter, savoring the simple pleasures that make life extraordinary. Today, we delve into her journey, her adventures in and out of the corporate world, and her secrets to balancing work, family, and fun. Join us as we explore the art of badassery through the lens of Ro, a woman who knows how to chase her dreams and embrace the joys of life to the fullest. Stay tuned, peeps, for an inspiring and insightful conversation that's going to leave you feeling motivated and ready to take on your adventures with a touch of badassery. Ro, welcome to the show. It's so nice to see you.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mahara.
It's interesting because this is the first time I've had a client on the podcast, and I'm wondering if we can just set the stage for our listeners. Let's go back to maybe the beginning of the year before we met. Can you describe what was going on in your world or why you were feeling how you were feeling?
Absolutely. And really to bring it all to full circle, having a position or your job eliminated because of just where the company is and the unfortunate part of not receiving funding, it put me in a position where I had to go job searching. And I've done this before, but at this point now in my life of having to find that job, I've also opened the door of bringing my mother back into my life because of my daughter. And many of those points of having more personal reactions with my mom in a more consistent manner led me in this path of just a downturn of thinking I'm listening to these crazy voices in my head of like, I'm not good enough, or hearing my mom in my head many a times. And so, scrolling through, being in places and looking for, I need help. That's really where it resonated with me was I need help. And where can I go get help? And here you are showing up in my LinkedIn feed. The universe was like, so you said you need help, and here she is. And so I thought, okay, you offered a free workshop. And that was where I was like, all right, what the hell? Let me just check out this workshop. If this is the right thing, then I know the universe will deliver exactly what it's trying to show for me. And that's kind of then how our beautiful relationship sparked, is being a part of your workshop and then me recognizing like, wow, the things that you had offered and your ability to listen and then provide great insights. That was just the trigger for me to say, this is who I need in my life right now. And so happy that I took that opportunity to dive in with you and really, find a lot of the clarity that I needed, but then also recognize like, holy shit, I am badass. I am still badass. And, I am so thankful for that opportunity that the universe was like, see, I told you you were still a badass. I don't know why you didn't think that, but here's someone who will remind you how much of a badass you are.
I love that. Ro, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I want to go back to something that you said, because I think that's really important. There are times in our lives when we are faced with having to really look at relationships. And what I heard was, because of your work situation, your mom was in your life a little bit more regularly, more consistently. And that it brought up some stories that you were telling yourself. Can we go back to those? Because recognizing that we have a story is so important in navigating that story, because sometimes the stories don't work for us. And I think at the beginning of the year, the stories that you were telling yourself, you mentioned them briefly. I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that. They can kind of paralyze us.
Mm-hmm.
Was it obvious in other areas of your life, or was it just, if I may ask, between your family?
I would say that mostly because of my mom, but I did recognize that working with you allowed me to see other ways in how I'm not communicating as effectively as I should, especially like with my husband and somewhat with my daughter. But at that time too, I mean, she is still one. And so communication is a little bit different with a 1-year-old.
So what was it you think that was holding you captive with your communication? Because I'm trying to understand, why is it so hard to communicate how we're feeling? I guess is the question I'm asking. So why was it so hard for you to communicate with your husband how you're feeling, or even with your mom?
Yeah. And a big part of that though is, as a child growing up with my mom, she really squashed a lot of that ability to really feel full feelings. And so I honestly, through most of my life, kind of went through, up until now, these very short, maybe 4 kind of in my head types of emotions. I'm happy, sad, angry, mad. I really kind of squashed them down into this small little subset of categories, or, areas, if you will, recognizing that in reality, we have so many different emotions, and realizing how I can be a little bit more effective of identifying the right feeling, and then putting that with the word to then communicate, like, well, this is how I feel in this moment. And then being able to carry that further, so that, especially for my daughter, as I watch her go through maybe her 2-year-old meltdown. And, I'm trying to help her understand the type of emotion that she might be going through, of she's disappointed in this particular thing, or she's, distressed over this particular video that's just not playing because it's timing out. Different ways to be able to really categorize those feelings appropriately, instead of whittling them down into maybe 4 kind of feelings.
That's such a good call out. And, I talk about it a lot on the show and with my clients, of course, is clarity is everything. So not only being very clear in identifying your feelings, but going a little bit deeper and finding out where those feelings came from, right? Because it's wonderful to say, you know what, I'm actually feeling embarrassed versus angry. But then
Yes.
the question, why does this particular experience have you feeling embarrassed? Let's go backwards a step. Let's go a little bit deeper than that. And I'm wondering if you could touch on how it felt for you when I gave you that opportunity to go deeper, because I, as your coach, saw quite a change from the beginning to, after 6 months. But how did it feel for you? If you can think back to one of the first times that I said, well, that's interesting. Let's talk about that. Let's go a little deeper.
Yeah, I would say it was really, as we are going through and talking, I think you being able to stop and say, well, let's go a little bit deeper into that particular area, where it's more of you allowing me to also stop for a second and reflect and then recognize, okay, why was I feeling that way? Or let me look back further. And many a times it's understanding that a lot of, what I've carried growing up with my mom, a lot of that I really tried to cover up, put in a box, if you may say, and then throw it deep down into a deep, dark closet and hope that it never gets unearthed. And so you being able to help me really reflect or think back on something to help me unbox some things and recognize, like, I've been holding on to that. I have not really dived into that, or I had a misunderstanding of how I was really feeling about something, and then realizing that there's something greater, that I can actually reframe it and look at it completely different. Because, like, for an instance, maybe my mom reacted in a certain way because she was just in her element at that time, and I don't know any better of what she might have been going through. But, really thinking back of knowing, my mom did as best as she could at the time of where she was. And, also recognizing that as an immigrant coming to the United States, barely speaking English, some of that also made me think about my mom trying to communicate to me in English, in broken English. And sometimes, that communication is also very key. Knowing that maybe the emotion she was trying to express, or the emotion that she was trying to explain to me, wasn't well explained. And so, those are kind of the things of you helping me to realize, look at the situation and really understand, where are you? What's going on? And then look further, look deeper to how to reframe it, and tell yourself, that, the truth really is whatever it really is. And so I think, in the end, you showing that and showcasing that to me, I believe, has been like the big superpower for me to think there's always a different way to look at something. Perspective is very, very key. How you're looking at something, and then how to, reframe as well.
I love it. So you said something earlier that I want to go back to, which was you realized that you actually had always been badass. And I think it's pretty common that, when we're young, we've got energy and spark and enthusiasm, and we're creative, and we're all of these beautiful things, and life can, as you said, can squish us down, all lots of stresses happen. And now you're finding your way back again. But give us some examples of why you felt you were badass as a younger woman.
Yeah, I embodied what I feel is being badass, which is being yourself inside and out, no matter where you are or what you're doing, but also recognizing that power that you have, and you're utilizing it for the greater good, doing something to help improve maybe not only your life, but someone else's life. And, that's pretty much, if I gave myself a type of animal or insect, I always was, very acclimated to butterflies. And for me, I see them as they're just free spirited, just floating around, going from here to there and enjoying life. And that's how I really felt, especially in my 20s, through college and into my, first few years in the real world of corporate business. And I really did truly try to embody that as best as I could every day, of just showing up and doing me all day, every day.
And you had quite an interesting career. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you studied and why you're so passionate
Yeah.
about it?
I studied industrial engineering, so I am an engineer by degree. But one thing that I really, enjoyed in the engineering world was there's so many different kinds of engineers, and industrial engineering was something that was closer aligned to me, even as a child, of my thrill to problem solve, to figure out how to fix something, and then put it all back together without anybody realizing that like somebody took it apart. Knowing how something really works and really understanding fully a process and then how to make it better. And so I kind of carried that. And then industrial engineering was that one degree where, it's really focused on industrialization, really looking at how you're processing something, how you're building something, and even from more of a human aspect too, because in order to build something, you need a human, you need hands, generally speaking, or even from the very beginning of design. So all of that really brings in that human element to connect into what it is that you're doing and building and processing. And then the other side of it was I enjoyed though the quality aspect. And so being able to assess how we put it together and figuring out how to make it better, how to reduce defects, how to, really optimize something and make a quality product. That is really what got to me and propelled me through my career of being a quality engineer. So I took my industrial engineering degree and took that in the automotive world and non-automotive to where I am today in autonomous vehicles.
So we're going to take a short break right now, but I'll be back with my guest within 60 seconds. Ladies, unlock your inner badass and transform your life with my monthly subscription workshop. For just $47 a month, you'll have exclusive access to work closely with me, Mahara Wayman, as we dive deep into all things badass, from personal development to conquering your goals. Imagine waking up every day with confidence, purpose, and a smile that radiates your newfound strength. Take advantage of this badass opportunity and join us today at www.mindfulnesswithmahara.com and start your journey toward a happier, more confident you. Smile when no one is looking. You've earned it. That's so cool. But what I want to highlight, and I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but when you described what filled your cup with the engineering, I couldn't help but see a correlation, a parallel to what you've just gone through. Because what I heard you say was, I'm fascinated by the ability to take something apart, rebuild it into something better, which sounds like what you and I have been doing for the last 8 months. Would you not agree?
I would totally agree.
So I just think that's interesting. I want to congratulate you on finding, and you're about to jump back into the corporate world. How excited are you about that?
Super excited.
That's fantastic. Let's go back a bit to the family dynamic, because when you were a young girl, you felt badass. You really resonated with the idea of a butterfly being very free and flowing from one thing to the next. By your own admission, there were situations with your mom that you just put in a box and didn't want to deal with, but you had beautiful success in your life anyway. You fantastic relationship, this gorgeous little baby girl, a great job, and then it kind of all came to a halt. And when that came to a halt, more of the pain, shall we say, came to the surface because mom was in the picture a lot more. I am curious, is mom aware of how much you have grown in the last few months, especially with regards to how you communicate with her?
I'm sure she probably has noticed, especially because the other day, as a matter of fact, I called her and we, the key thing is Violet's face, we FaceTime. And so for anybody who has an iPhone, or if you do any kind of FaceTiming, but your face is on the first thing. And so as soon as someone picks up, that's the face. And it's always Violet's face, my daughter. And so, when we call grandma and she sees, my daughter and her granddaughter, and she just, her face just lights up. And you can see that. And she made a comment to me that day was, how come you're calling me? Normally we call each other because we need something. And I kind of chuckled and I laughed and I said, well, Mom, we were calling because we just wanted to say hi. Violet wanted to say hi to Grandma. So here we are calling you today. And my mom was like, wow, that's so amazing. I love that. And so I think for her, she's also recognized, some change, especially because I've gotten, a little bit more in the calling her out of the blue just to say hi.
What a great story. I'm so happy for you and your mom, and of course for Violet. And that's why the work that we do, anybody does on themselves, is so important. It's not just I want to feel better in my skin. It's not just I want to do some self-development so I get a better job. Really, there's a ripple effect, and our families are often the very first people to experience that ripple effect of better communication, of more vulnerability, of more honesty. I'm curious how you think your growth is going to show up in your new role, because all of the work that we did was when you were on the in between. So how do you think it's going to affect your new role?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it's going to do amazing things for me, especially because, one key thing that I've learned too over these last, 5 months, especially during the times that we were working together, was helping me understand how to really love myself, to take those hidden feelings, those boxed feelings, and really just kind of clean out my closet, but also understanding that in order to love yourself, you have to love everything about yourself. The dark, dirtiness, the dingy, the grime, all of that. Know where it is. And if you need to, clean it out, dust it off. Sometimes we put things away because we think, I'm going to use this again sometime later on in my life. But also, it's why we have garage sales. It's why we have spring cleaning, because sometimes we need to clean the shit out. We need to get it out. And again, the only way to love yourself is to really look at everything inside you and make sure that you truly love everything inside you, both inside and out, right? And so those are the things that, for me, recognizing how to be better at loving myself and knowing that as long as I love myself, it's going to help me in anything that I do, because I'm going to be able to project that love everywhere.
You know what else I can see happening too, though, is what I've witnessed. You are no longer afraid. You're open to the vulnerability that comes with feedback.
Absolutely.
And that's what that's what a coaching relationship is all about, is I give her a lot of feedback, and then she's learning to give herself feedback. And in the corporate world, especially in a management position, unless you own the company, there's always somebody above you that's going to give you feedback. We all have bosses, but I think in your case, you have learned the skill to accept feedback in a way that's not crushing, because you are more secure in who you are as a person. That's where the self-love comes in. So if somebody says, Ro, what the hell? You can go, oh, I can tell you exactly what the hell, rather than, oh my God, I'm in shit. Do you see the difference? So I think that's going to be a really wonderful thing for you moving forward, especially as you take on this new role. What else would you say has been one of the biggest transformations for you from the beginning of the year to now?
One big thing for me, actually, I should, let me put it into I have two big things. One is writing and really understanding how to write. I think that was a very big thing for me coming into work with you. Is I struggled of being able to journal or write and take those thoughts out of my head. And so that has been huge. And as a matter of fact, being outside of my comfort zone, because even doing this podcast is completely outside of my comfort zone. So I love it. It's a thrill of being able to do this, but also continuing that writing. And I've gotten onto Substack, and I have been reading all kinds of blogs and articles. And I have started to put together my own blog, and I'm going to start my own blogging or writing on Substack. So I can't wait to share with you that link, begin that journey, that chapter of actually writing and putting many of my thoughts onto paper, or digital paper, if you may say.
I am so proud of you because, Ro, you're right. I know the benefit of journaling, of doing a brain dump, whether it's, on the computer or by hand. And for many weeks, she kind of struggled. And finally, one week she said, okay, I have to be honest. I don't journal. I have a bit of a block around it. And so we worked on that. And now look at where you are. Congratulations. I'm really excited for you. So I just want to recap what we've talked about today, Ro. You are and have been very successful in your world because of the type of work that you do. There was a time when you were let go from your work. Because of that, some family dynamics came up more often. You realized that you were struggling. You found me on LinkedIn. We worked together through the working and and you worked very hard. You found a way to be more honest with your loved ones, and your communication is gazillion times better than it has been. You're much more aware of who you are and what you want out of life. You are no longer hesitant to set boundaries that work for you, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because, guys, please don't think that this type of work is just like walking through a meadow, right, with ice cream at the end. There is work, and sometimes things come up that are very painful. But one of the things that I know from experience, and that even Ro now knows, is you can't ignore the pain, and you can change your relationship with it. You can look at it, get curious, and go a little bit deeper and figure things out, and just forgive yourself, because often the stories we tell ourselves are actually bullshit. But we don't know that until we give ourselves permission to look at it. So, Ro, you have done a tremendous amount of work. And starting on Monday, you start your new position in a whole new company with a whole new attitude. Have I missed out anything? I do want to talk about one thing, though, but before we move on to that, I just want to, have I missed anything in the sequence of events with regards to your career and your personal development work?
Yeah, no. But one thing I do want to comment, because when I said I had two big things,
Oh,
and
right.
journaling was one, but the other one, you kind of alluded to it just a second ago, was boundaries. And that's what's been very, very key for me, and especially in your workshop. I think that was probably the key thing for me, was recognizing that it's so important for us to identify those boundaries and make sure that we set those boundaries, given that sometimes, those boundaries may need to change.
I think having boundaries is paramount to being badass. And really, what I've learned, and what I think you've learned, is that boundaries aren't a bad thing. You're not a bitch if you have a boundary. You're just something to know what's going to work, right?
Right.
And it's so interesting because I hear this all the time from my clients is, I was scared to set the boundary. I did, but guess what? Nobody said anything. They're like, oh, okay. It's such a relief to us that we think, oh, wow, they're not mad at me. And even if they were, it's okay. But thank you for reminding me that you had a second big aha. Learning how to set boundaries that work for you, not against you, is key. And it's one whole module in my group program. But okay, so what I want to now touch on, just switch gears for a bit, is I want to talk about how you as a badass are able to inject fun and love and levity in your life, even with the challenges of having two dogs, a baby, and unemployed for 6, 7 months. Talk to us a little bit about how you managed to do that, because many of us would love to know.
Looking at it and looking back, right, each day definitely took courage to wake up and tell myself, hey, regardless what happens today, the best thing is you are alive. You have a beautiful family. Having him as my best friend, my husband, my spouse, and my other co-parenter to a beautiful daughter. Reminding myself that regardless of whether I have a job or not, the fact is that I have a beautiful family, and being clear on what it is that I want each day and knowing these are the tasks, these are the things that I'm going to do today. Looking forward to being able to make those small wins. So if it's making sure that I, got to spend 5 minutes of really in-depth time with my daughter and watching her grow and develop and learn something new, that has been probably one of the biggest things that brought me joy through the last 7 months, was really reminding myself of each time that she learns something brings just like tremendous joy. And that's one thing that I live for, the next day, to be able to see that new thing that she's going to learn. And I've done a lot of training myself in the quality realm and in the corporate world. And that's kind of one of the big phrases that I always start in my training is, I'm excited for all of you to learn something new, if not today, but by the end of this course. And so for me, it's like I get to say this phrase in my head every day of like, I'm so excited to see her learn something new. And even for me, and the same for my husband. And so, every time when we do all learn something new, then it's like it's high fives all around. And that's one thing too that I love about my daughter is anytime that we have something that we want to celebrate, she automatically just arms up, straight up, like the victorious V. She gets excited, or then it's like the high fives. And so those little joyous moments, I would say, are the key for being able to enjoy life, to look back and say, regardless of the crap that you're going through or the down place that you may be, when you find just that little moment of joy, it brings so much to the surface of allowing you to get through and look forward to the next day.
Oh, that's so beautiful. An attitude of gratitude. We talk about it all the time. And of course, my business name is Mindfulness with Mahara. So a lot of what Ro and I did was we learned to slow down and just be very present. And to your point, Ro, when we give ourselves permission to be present with our loved ones, magic happens. Whether and I'm dogs as well. Like I've got puppies. Everybody knows dogs, and we love them so much, right? I've got kids, and when I slow down and just sit with them and I hear them laugh, it's like the best thing ever. So I really appreciate your recognition that being able to celebrate the simple joys in your everyday life have helped to elevate your energy to a point where you are feeling way more badass than perhaps in the past, and really motivated and excited about the future. But of course, you're starting this great new job on Monday, but you really are quite different from the woman I met at the beginning of this year, in so much as your energy is really, I can see it, I can feel it. And I want to thank you for joining us today on this program and for sharing your story with us. Guys, you don't have to go through life alone. Really, you don't. There's lots of people out there. And if I, anything that you can take away from our conversation today, it's give yourself permission to be happy. Really, it's okay to feel the moments of stress, and it's okay to go in the closet and look at that box. If you need help to unpack it, go find help. There is help around. You are meant to be here. You bring beauty and joy to the world. Ro, is there anything that we don't know about you that we would like to know, just as we round this up, as we close off this podcast?
Oh man, anything. Well, fun tidbit. I'll give you a fun tidbit. I have a motorcycle license, but I've never owned a motorcycle. So I am licensed to ride any kind of motorcycle, and yet I've never actually bought one.
And why is that?
Well, because I love going fast. Mind you, I do have a Tesla. And so that electric car, man, every time I get into that, I'm like, ugh, I have a need for speed. And I've always known that if I got myself a motorcycle, I probably wouldn't still be standing here today. So I've calculated out the risk, and I have told myself, I'll wait. Maybe I'll get like a hog of some sort when I'm older and ride around.
I love it. I can see you on a hog with all of your leathers. Folks, thank you for joining us today on this special edition, I think, of the Art of Badassery. Ro, my guest, my client, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so, so proud of you and all of the work that you've done in yourself. And those of you that are listening, be badass, because you deserve to feel totally comfortable in your skin. My name is Mahara. This has been the Art of Badassery. I will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Art of Badassery. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights to help unleash your inner badass. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave a rating or review on your favorite platform. Your feedback not only helps me improve the show, but it also helps others like yourself discover the podcast. Until next time, keep embracing your authenticity and living life on your terms. Here's to you.